Welcome to another wonderful episode of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D. My name is Sendra Dorcé, your host for today. Today we have Mr. YUKONG Zhao. Let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Zhao. He grew up in communist China under the dictator Chairman Mao. His father was politically persecuted during China's Cultural Revolution in 1992. Mr. Zhao legally immigrated into the U.S. to pursue his American dream. In 1996, he received his MBA degree from the University of South Carolina and moved to Orlando. With outstanding business leadership, he later became the director of global planning at Siemens Energy. Inspired by his personal experience since 2014, Mr. Zhao has started his journey fighting against liberal agenda and socialism. He co-founded and serves as the president of Asian American Coalition for Education. They obtained strong support from the Trump administration and made a difference on national policies regarding college admissions and equal education rights for all Americans. Made a difference on national policies regarding college admissions and equal education rights for all Americans. In recent years, Mr. Zhao has published several articles and given many speeches fighting against political correctness, socialism, and the ongoing cultural revolution in America. With outstanding policymaking skills, he recently developed and published his policy recommendation on combating COVID-19. Mr. YUKONG Zhao is also the Republican congressional candidate for Florida's District 7, which covers the whole Seminole County and northern part of Orange County. He is a proven national leader fighting radical socialism. And Mr. Zhao, I would like to say thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D. And what did I leave off? Did you want to add anything in the introduction?
Sure. First, I want to say thank you for having me. It's a great honor and also it's a great opportunity to talk with the audience, to let people know me more, know what I'm fighting for and why I'm running for the U.S. Congress.
Absolutely. But of course, this show is about who you are, not necessarily your candidacy, but who you are on a personal level. Because I know you and I have interacted in more stricter political forums, but this is more about your personal side. I definitely want to hear about your journey from China to here. The audience wants to hear more directly about socialism. Of course, it is not a talking point for you because you actually lived it. But I want to start with the first question, and that is, what was your journey to get you to this point today? To speak to me?
Sure. I think, I have a unique journey, basically, but also like many first-generation immigrants. I was born in Kunming, China, the capital city of the Yunnan province. I only had about 5-6 year happy childhood. When I reached 3 years old, the Chinese dictator Chairman Mao launched the Cultural Revolution, and my father was politically persecuted, and he lost freedom for 5 years. He endured torture and also forced labor, and immediately after that, when I was about 6 years old, my grandma was forced relocated to a remote village because my grandpa only has in terms of vision, only one vision, very poor vision, and my grandma already suffered heart attack already, but it's a very brutal, revolutionary guards by the Chairman Mao. They don't.
So this is what you were experiencing at 6 years old.
Yes, so they did not allow them to stay in Kunming. They forced us to relocate to a remote village. There's no tap water, no electricity, no nearby clinic. A few months later, my grandma suffered heart attack again, and then think about that. Socialists claim have like good healthcare, but my grandma was carried by stretcher by villages, walking 3 or 4 days before to reach nearby clinic. A few months later, she passed away, and which led to the extreme poverty and also devastating family loss and also a broken family. So fortunately, in 1978, Deng Xiaoping, the Chinese leader, he was a reformer. He initiated open and reform policy, learning from the West, right? He restored the college admission. I worked very hard. I scored top 15 out of more than 20,000 people attended like the college exam, entrance examination. So
like they have here, they have the MCAT, the SATs, and
exactly. So I went to one of the best college in China called University of Science and Technology of China. After that, I participated in Chinese reform, economic reform. And in my early 20s, I already started making the policy industry strategies for Chinese mining cities. And in my late 20s, I published one book. The book is called Mining Cities in China, Sustainable Development and Structural Reform. Already promote Western management style, like diversification.
So this is while you were in China?
Yes, I actually cited a great example of Houston, how Houston developed from an oil town to a very diversified metropolitan, that kind of big city, right? We try to promote that experience to Chinese cities. But during the course of actions, there was Tiananmen Square incident. And even before that, many of my classmates already came to America to learn modern management, learn technologies, try to achieve American dream. I was inspired by them, but also Tiananmen Square incident, really the leader.
It was a catalyst.
Yeah, they try to reverse course of reform. So I began to come to America. So in 1992, so I first went to Virginia Tech. A couple of years later, I went to University of South Carolina, and I received international MBA. That was ranked #1 in the country that time. And I also did very well. I was ranked #1 foreign student when I graduated from that college.
Excellent. And I want to bring you to the point, is that when you met your wife? Because I know you have a fantastic story with your wife as well.
I will later introduce, actually, when I met my wife in Beijing.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'll let you tell your story. I met his wife. She's beautiful, wonderful woman. And so, go ahead.
So, after I received my MBA, I got a job in Orlando. That time was Westinghouse. And then a couple of years was acquired by Siemens, right? So I work very hard, smart. I utilize my industry strategist skill. I was promoted rapidly and later become the director of global planning at Siemens Energy. And so I left Siemens Energy in 2018, about 2 years ago. So, but when I started my dream, as a poor student, right? When I arrived this country, I bring less than $200 in my pocket. One my college classmate called David Bai, he bought the flight ticket. Actually, I repaid later.
My goodness.
And then, but I tell you, when I achieved my American dream, but I never forgot very generous Americans who supported me. So when financial crisis hit America, I began to write a book.
You're speaking about the 2008 financial crisis.
That is correct. I published one book called The Chinese Secrets for Success, 5 Inspirational Confucian Values. I published one book and many articles in Orlando Sentinel to really help struggling families on money management, family management, education, crime prevention, many areas.
Excellent.
So
this is all based on Confucius
Wisdom.
Wisdom.
Yes.
I would love to talk to you later about that in more details. But
sure.
Go ahead.
And then since 2014, I started my journey to defend American dream, right? Helping others to achieve American dream. But later on, I found there was serious discrimination by the liberal institutions at Harvard University and many others against the Asian American students. They are trying to implement socialism, equal results, not equal opportunity. So I became a national leader. I co-founded and served as president of the Asian American Coalition for Education. So we mobilized Asian American community nationwide. We got great support from the Trump administration. Made a difference on policy, on the college admission, and equal education rights for all Americans.
That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sure. And following on that, I began my journey fighting against radical liberal agenda, things like political correctness. As a matter of fact, 1 year ago, before I decided running for the Congress, already published an article fighting against political correctness. I published article fighting against socialism, ongoing cultural revolution. So today, I am a proven leader fighting against radical left and socialism agenda.
Of course, because you've lived it. You're from that culture. So you've seen the consequences of that. It's not someone telling you what could happen. You saw what actually happened. So I want to speak. You spoke a little bit about leadership. So now you've been a business leader, and now you're inspired to be a political leader. So who are you? What is your style of leadership?
In terms of style of leadership, I think a few things. Number one, I'm a great thinker. I have been doing strategic planning, right? So when I take action, before I take action, I have great plan. You have well planned ahead. That's number one. Number two, I'm taking action. The reason we can create so much impact on the nation because my leadership, Asian American Coalition for Education, taking actions. We keep fighting against the radical left. So that's kind of, I also want to say is also I bring international perspective. That is very valuable.
Very crucial.
When we're running for the U.S. Congress. Very example today. America confronts the threat and the competition from Iran, Russia, and China. Over the years, we don't have enough leadership who has leadership or bilingual skills, right? So today, America confronts the international competition and threats from Iran, like Russia and China. But over the years, we don't have enough international knowledge, expert in the U.S. Congress. What I'm going to bring are my international knowledge and bilingual skill, both English and Chinese. Two of the at least three most important language, right? In English, Chinese, or in Spanish, right? Probably I know two of them, right?
Right.
So that kind of skill, right? So in this case, I want to say, in summary, I'm the best qualified candidates to fight against radical liberal.
So on that note,
sure.
I know you want to, but I want to know more your leadership style. At what point? Because I know for me, I've decided when I saw someone that I respected, I decided I want to be that type of leadership. Who was it for you? Was it your parents that you admired, that you respected, that inspired you? Who was it that helped you become who you are? That helped you to believe that dreaming big was possible?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I want to tell you, I want to attribute to my parents. First is my mom, and she's a very charismatic, woman, and she cares about other people, and she's great communicator. I want to tell you, when we were young, not only we love my mom, even my relatives, as siblings, cousins, all love my mom. Okay, that kind of charisma. Also, she has great heart during Cultural Revolution. Many of my relatives, because they grew up, their parents were landlord, right, or grew up rich, they were frequently tortured by the Red Guards. So many times they escape, came to my house, and my mom gave them refuge, right? She's that kind of mom, I really learned a lot. Also my father, he is like a great fighter. He never gave in. He has high degree of integrity. I want to give you one example.
So important.
I want to give you one example. When China, after economic reform, there was some corruption going on in the society. He was doing construction, overseas constructions. Suppose he has rights to do the final inspection because he demand good quality. You know what? His supervisor removed him from the final inspection because if he's there, the constructor may not pass, right? So he's kind of, and also because during Cultural Revolution, he was tortured also, when he was supervising a lot of construction work, he demanded high quality. But when Cultural Revolution comes, some people do not really, in the past, may deliver poor quality work, being asked to rework something, they revenge my dad. They torture my dad. So that kind of situation.
I'm so sorry.
He got a few really being broken, and
So this is under Chairman Mao.
Under Chairman Mao. So it's kind of, if one party took over, if that dictatorship, America may go that way. That's something.
Yes, there is a threat.
Yeah.
There is a threat in this country, and it's very serious. So yes, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess I pretty much inspire and learned the leadership from my parents. But along the way, I have been exposed to many great leaders from my college and from my company, my mentor in Siemens, whose name Barry Nichols, who also teaching me a lot of leadership. So I guess from person's journey, really learning from others, I think it really enabled me to become a great leader, to become a good leader,
Absolutely. Well, I could see that leadership because I've interacted with you in many functions, in political forums, and I could see that great that trait in you that just wants to servant leadership, not just to be the leader of something, but also to serve.
Yeah.
That's what I gather from you. But I also wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier about Confucius, and I know China being a communist country, there is no room for God or any main spiritual practice. As a matter of fact, there's, I don't have any direct information about this, about how they have Muslims now in concentration camps. So, again, I don't know much about that. I've just perused certain headlines and certain, articles about that, but I haven't looked into it myself, just to full disclosure. But I want you tell me, Confucius is a spiritual teaching. So how were you able to maintain a spiritual outlook when the government in most of the mediums were preaching that God wasn't real and it was actually illegal to be anything but an atheist?
Yeah, I want to say, actually, unfortunately, when the communists took over China, right, they rewrite the history. And what, they own, not during Cultural Revolution, they topped down a lot of historic temples, or also destroyed Confucius' tomb. And
this is what we're seeing here, isn't it?
Yes.
They're destroying they're canceling the culture, they're canceling everything, and they are destroying so they can rewrite to their advantage, rewrite history.
Yes, and then but the good side is most Chinese people, they already some Asian wisdom, like the one I proposed, actually more on the secular value. For example, you need to have a great inspiration when you were young, called 励志. Say you need to emphasize education, we call 中学. Say you need to save money, right? Have good personal finance, and called 节俭. Also, like, manage your family, called 齐家, have beneficial relationship. So my book actually does not really propose any Confucian value on how to manage a country or a political system, because Western society already surpassed that. Western civilization, rule of law, check and balance, democracy already surpassed, China. But what my book was only talk about some secular, moral value, which is a kind of a complement with Christian value here. Christian value I also, cherish. For example, love others, right? Integrity, trust, a lot of Christian value.
And honor. Yeah. Honor is one that I love to touch on, because it's, it's a very, I'm always interested to hear what people think of the word honor. So if you could touch on that a bit.
Sure. I think on the surface, honor be perceived as personal things. But actually, in order to achieve honor, I received many honor, but I knew what it takes. Number one, you need to have responsibility. You need to have commitment. You need to have, sacrifice. For example, when I was leading Asian American Coalition for Education, sometimes, maybe my, one of my supporters got sick. We need to write a press release. I have to step up. I have to, have to sacrifice my time, right? Commitment to the society, to your support.
Sure.
So you need to take this kind of hard work, commitment, responsibility to achieve honor. You need to create impact.
Absolutely.
So that's what I see the honor.
Absolutely. So we talked about, earlier about Confucius and what you were learning, and also you touched on the idea that there was a cancel culture and they were rewriting history. How did that, when you were in school, how is it different what you are understanding about Chinese history versus what they were, what they wanted you to believe? Because there is the real history and there's the history that they want you to believe, which is what they're trying to do in this country. Because I think regardless of whether you can, even if you delete every bit of the last history, we still have the history inside us, that our family has lived or relived. You can burn all the books, and they've done that in many cultures. They burn books. But tell me, what was it like when you first found out that the history they wanted you to believe wasn't the history of China at all? How does that work on your psyche or your personal self, to see how they try to, I want to use a different word, but we'll go ahead and say brainwash. It's really brainwashing.
Absolutely. I want to tell you, when I was young, during Chinese Cultural Revolution, they used to brainwash everything, even the drama, right? The TVs, movies, that time there was no TV. They only allow 8 drama being broadcast nationwide. So we have 800 million people only watch 8 drama. Think about that. Because, they burned off a lot of books and don't allow publication. They try to brainwash. The worst thing they did is they changed the dictionary. They use every term being redefined by the so-called communist term, right?
So you're seeing this again in this country.
Yeah.
You must be saying, what did I do? I left one system to be thrown back into the system. And so, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's the reason in June, I published one article in Daily Caller, really compare what was happening 50 years ago in China versus what's happening today. I knew the playbook. I knew how they destroy Chinese culture. Chinese culture, actually, communist is not Chinese culture. Right. It is a bad Western culture, right? From Germany, right? So that is bad. But in Chinese culture, like Confucian, value, very ancient times, Confucian was one of the first emphasized government should for the people. That was a great value. It's
a more holistic system.
Yes.
Where there's no top down, it's just equal.
But during the Cultural Revolution, when we were brainwashed. We knew nothing about that. We only knew like Confucius
What
was
they
bad,
wanted you to do.
was a bad guy. All the historical culture was bad, and only the communist ideology was good.
And
So
the party actually was God, and the Chairman Mao was, supreme being.
Exactly. So they did this kind of thing. When I realized, also they use propaganda claims a 2/3 of the world population living under extremely deep water, in trouble, right? So we are happy. So we were so happy living under Tiananmen Mall. But when Deng Xiaoping opened that door, and we suddenly realized we are really the unfortunate part. Actually, American, Western society were much advanced than we were, So they're telling the line, actually, right, unfortunately, the radical left also doing the same thing to America. It's really shameful, I would say.
I actually think that they have a right to do what they want. The problem is that because there's a small group, but the majority of the Democratic Party are so obsessed with getting rid of Donald Trump that they're going along with it. And so, yes, they are the loudest voice in the Democratic Party, but I have friends who are Democrats who don't agree with what they're doing. But unfortunately, they're more opposed to Donald Trump than they are to opposing the insanity that is happening in the progressive movement. So yes, I do. It's insane, but people, they have their agenda. They just want Donald Trump out, and for me, it makes no sense because there will be no America for us to live in if they allow this to continue. And and of course, you have lived through it. So in your case, it's it was a movement that just spread like wildfire. Here, they are setting the place on fire, so there's not going to be much left. I don't even know if they'll have anything to govern after they finish. So on the topic of education, you have lived through the educational system from a socialist standpoint. What was that like? I mean, coming to find out that most of it was brainwashing and wasn't the truth after all.
Yeah, I was so surprised, and when I came to this country, right, they allow different viewpoints, right, and a free debate and freedom of speech. That was when I arrived in America in 1992, right. I really cherished that. It's because the freedom of thought really create innovation, have stable government, and also instead of one part, if only one ideas, so we will lead to dictatorship. That's something we want to prevent. So that's the reason I'm strongly against cancel culture, strongly against political correctness. That is danger to our democracy, to our future. So so that's I think key lesson learned.
It's interesting because, my father worked under a dictatorship and I was always very outspoken, but I'm still very shy. And I think it was because I grew up in an environment where everyone had to be very careful what they said, not to upset the government. Even though my father was part of the government, certain people had the right to speak and some people didn't. So I felt that it was encouraged for me to silence my voice. And you probably, when you came to this country, how did it feel like from that moment you found out that in school, they encourage you to speak your mind, to be straightforward. That's the value. I went to business school in Britain and I was not encouraged to be outspoken. And I saw quite a different dynamic in the educational system. So tell me what that felt like when you came and found out that, oh my God, they do really want to know how I think and how, what my opinions are.
Yes, I was totally encouraged. And I also, I participated in Chinese economic reform and also Tiananmen Square incident early on. I was like outspoken, but I was not a student leader, but many of us supported that quietly, right? So like I was, writing, trying to contribute idea for economic reform, right? It was really dictator. Chairman Mao at that time, they did not allow any different opinion, right? But Deng Xiaoping kind of get more people, more freedom, right? As good as America, right?
The wall came down, right?
Yes. And then when I come to America, I really suddenly found it's great freedom, right? So I want to share with you one thing. When I went to the like international MBA program in one international strategy class, my class participation was number one in the class as a foreign student. So I love that, right? I enjoy that. But like as you mentioned recently, I'm very disappointed, very concerned when the radical left you try to use the cancel culture, try to use political corrects to really, take away our freedom of speech. That is what
absolutely. I was looking at your pin, the American flag. It's the way you wear that so proudly. It's again for me, the flag is in my heart. Of course, I came from another country. It took some time before I actually, subscribe to the whole flag loving idea.
Yep.
Because I was a carefree spiritual person. It's a flag, but then it's what it represents. Can you tell me what the American flag represents for you?
Sure, absolutely. I think American flag representing our U.S. Constitution, our founding principle. Without American Constitution, without our founding principle like freedom of speech, free market system, rule of law, check and balance, the democracy, America will not become the greatest nation on earth. One more thing, it reflects all the soldiers, veterans who made great sacrifice for this nation. So look at Venezuela, right? They lost freedom so quick, right? So previously that was a free country, of freedom, but they lost so quick. So it's very valuable to maintain our freedom.
It's absolutely important that we understand that what can happen overseas can happen here. We're humans, and the humans are. It's not. It's how can I say? It is not because it's a small country or a large country. It just takes one seed to plant into the human mind for it to spread, because that's what happened with Nazis. That's what happens with socialism. It's just one. If you have a leader that is passionate about the idea in Marxism, then it will spread. And and I'm surprised that I see it spreading so rapidly in the United States.
Yeah, that's coming back to your early point about education. So
absolutely.
Our nation failed to really educate our children properly. Why? So, many young children are very innocent. They care about others. That's good. However, people tend to judge a policy superficially, look at a policy objective. Say if a policy is to help the poor, must be good policy. You guess what? Communists try to help the poor. The socialism try to help the poor, right? They claim, right? But at the end of the day, they don't have mechanisms. They fail. They not only destroy the rich, also destroy the poor.
Right.
So we need education our children. Look at the policy, not only from policy objective, also how effective it will not
absolutely
work.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at China right now, the way it is, it has this pyramid. And we have Mr. Xi, Chairman Xi. Yeah. Am I saying it properly? Xi. I get away with it when I speak to people who are not Chinese, but here I am with a native Chinese person who's going to correct me. Yes, I want to be corrected. I know two things in China is Xie Xie and Ni Hao. I think I said it correctly. Did I say that correctly? That's all I know. When I went to China, that's all I said. They said, we can teach you. I said, that's all I want to know. Thank you so much. But on that note, you have the top. There's, don't get me wrong. There is wealth in socialism. It just doesn't trickle down. It will stay at the top because the person making the decision wants to be comfortable. If you look at North Korea right now, what his name is, Kim Jong-un, he's very wealthy and he has lots of comfort. It's just the people. he doesn't wear the same thing every day, you know, and he gets his hair cut and, you know, differently. He gets to make a decision. And I think the idea of freedom is what is more, that we could lose at this point. The freedom to choose. The fact that some hierarchy will be the ones telling us what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. That kills the human spirit. Because we're creative human beings. We're creative, just like you made a decision you want to come to the U.S. You want to be able to move around the world, move around the U.S. But especially, and now I want to bring the topic of contact tracing. You know, if you think in China has this, you know, social ranking, what is that called in China, where they give you a rank for a certain, if they don't have sort of a credit report, they have a social profile that says how important you are in society. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, they call it social credit.
It's called social credit.
Yeah.
And that's where I see that this country's going with socialism. Because can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. I think the key difference between a socialist country versus a free market system is we have government, you know, of the people, by the people, for the people, right? But in socialist country, they claim our country have a mission. We try to help the poor, help the, you know, and then they confiscate people's wealth in limit people's freedom. So for so-called national purpose. But you know, when the bureaucrats, they get the power, they abuse that. That, you know, randomly, you know, this kind of corruption, right? They take away the freedom. So in this country, I see it's so great. We have personal freedom, individual, you know, people, right, is the most important, not the, you know, the government. So that is the difference. So in that, you know, under Chairman Mao, for example, everybody was in extreme poverty. You know, he launched called Great Leap Forward. More than about 30 million people starved to death. However, every day he still enjoy like seafood.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good meat, right? And also he and his government also give subsidy to other other communist countries. That is a shame, right? So so that's the difference. If you put the people as most important, your citizens as important, or you put the government as most important, that's the key difference.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful that I'm having this conversation with you because, we focus on this country, but it's interesting that it's important to know what if the pendulum swings the other way, what to expect in this country, in the United States. It will not be, first of all, the United States. It will be the non-United States because there are people like myself who would not stand for it. And so it won't be sort of a harmonious experience. And, there are different cultures here around the United States, but again, we live within the guidelines of the Constitution, and so I wanted to say, the freedom that you were seeking, so can you imagine if that freedom went away and your platform being the fact that you are someone who comes from China? And what kind of measures would you have if you were elected to protect this Constitution and to protect the freedom of the American people?
So I really want to take concrete measures, right, to really, I think from an education standpoint, from defending freedom of speech standpoint. One example, our government, subsidize NPR. However, a lot of NPR have, many radical left, right, bias, right? So we need to make NPR neutral, right?
Neutral.
It is more balanced. It should be like, if you receive government subsidy, you need to have, say, 50%.
To be independent, truly independent.
50% you probably, conservative, 50% you liberal. So that is audience really get the balanced view, right?
Absolutely.
So we need to really start to change. We also need a civic education. Also, one important thing I want to address is the root cause of the social unrest. It failed miserably. Why? Because over the last 50 years, liberal democratic, introduced war on poverty, introduced the race-based college, affirmative action. End of the day, they failed miserably to lift up the black and Hispanic, because they only give people the poor a fish per day. They never really teach them how to fish.
Well, absolutely, it keeps them in bondage, and I see that it's misery. But you try to tell people, but they don't. They still, it's so ingrained. It's because it's another form of brainwashing. Because you tell. I mean, I was speaking to someone who said that. She was speaking she was interacting with someone, and they were saying how their only dream was to their only way out of poverty was to have more children as a woman, and her mother told her to make sure she had a lot of children so that she could get government checks. And that breaks my heart as a woman, and I'm so grateful that my parents provided me the option of having education. Of course, not everybody has a healthy beginning, in the sense that I was fortunate to come from a 2-parent home, but also I wanted to touch a little bit about, what makes you the person, because I'm speaking to you and I'm interacting with you. I see how you are so passionate about everything. You are a passionate speaker. You will be a passionate servant, a civil servant. But you also have a business background. You are an entrepreneur still. You left Siemens, but now you're in real estate. And you are since COVID, you must have had some repercussions because you're a landlord at this time, correct? So what are you seeing out there in Seminole County with people that are dealing with as a result of COVID?
Yeah, I want to say, I really care about this. After the COVID really spreading in the US, right? The first thing I did is I stopped my campaign. I redirect them to, sending the grocery, help the senior to buy groceries. That's the first thing I did. I also joined the Chinese Professional Association of Orlando, donated the PPE. But more importantly, I also made the policy recommendation, sent to the White House coronavirus task force. I published part of that in Daily Caller. Why? Because I have policy making skills. I made a policy recommendation to the Trump administration. I made a lot of, company policies, but this time for national policy. So I think we need to first really help our small business and individuals first really control the coronavirus.
That's it.
And that's number one. Number two, we need to really continue provide effective support, economic support to individuals and small business job creators like restaurant owners and also like employees of like Walt Disney. We really have them. But I think if we address both things like combating coronavirus and also like helping the small business and individuals, I'm sure America can get through that.
Yeah.
We will,
absolutely
rise up again.
It will. It's a phenomenal country, a phenomenal idea. I think it's just a process of transformation at this point. And I want to talk to you a little bit as far as transformation, innovation. You have a technical background, and I asked my guests about artificial intelligence and how it will change the landscape of humanity in the next 10 years. What do you think about it, artificial intelligence, and what does that hold for humanity?
I want to say it's a great opportunity for human beings, also a great threat, right? So, on the good side, it will accelerate automation, right? And artificial intelligence is part of, it's new technology. For example, in the past, people use animal to farming.
Sure.
They use machine and tractors, other things. But right now it's sort of accelerate, right? So more automation. So people, example, drone technology right now can use for for the for distribute fertilizer, distribute pesticide, right? Also a lot of wonderful use. But I think that is good opportunity. But in the meantime, it's also threat if the terrorists use that. Or the country with dictatorship use that, right? So we need to really control that.
Well, spying is definitely
spying, and also I think to get America ahead, my plan is really transform our education to meet the 21st century needs, which is emphasize, and we need to put more funding, emphasis on the STEM education, which we are behind.
Sure. That definitely the US is behind because. Go ahead, sorry.
And also occupational training, right? These kind of things really help us ahead. If we lose top technology edge, we jeopardize our economic prosperity, also national interest.
So that's what you feel that needs to be reformed in this country, in the state, in the city as well. So what I want to ask you more on a personal note now.
Please.
It's what are you most determined? So you're running for Congress. You've written books. You have done radical things. You're a radical in your own right because you talk about radical left, but you're a radical. You left China with, how much did you have? $200 that you came to this country about that. And I noticed you haven't spoken to you about your wife, but we'll get that. I don't want to, we'll leave that for that. But, so what other visions do you have for your life? Because Congress is just a small part of it. What's left for you?
I think, I really want to create some impact. Congress will be a major stage, right? And, I will bring the international perspective, first generation immigrants, this kind of perspective. I want to say I'm a unique candidates who really suffer from socialism country, right? And then I'm going to Congress to fight against radical left, such as AOC, Bernie Sanders, and the Squad, right? So I will become a formidable fighter, really.
We know you're a fighter. Absolutely. We know you're a fighter. Since that 6-year-old white, you watched your grandmother go through such a difficult time. But I wanted to talk about more your personal goals.
Sure, please.
So this is Congress, this is business. On your personal goals. So now we can talk about your wife.
Sure.
And you have a wonderful story because you met in China and you came together to the US.
Yes, that is correct. In terms of my wife, I met her. She was a college student in Beijing. That 1 year after China's Tiananmen Square incident, and we began to date. We went to the English training class together. We shared the same dream, come to America. However, it's not been a very easy journey. First, I need to get enough financial assistance from America, from Virginia Tech, before the U.S. consulate gave her the visa, right? Fortunately, very generous, department chair, my mentor, Professor James Boland, suggested me, and then get Professor Ted Cable's help. I got more funding, so I got her visa. But China also have restriction. And they say every college graduate, after you graduate from your college, you have to work for 5 years before you can leave the country.
Wow.
That time, right? So a lot of restriction. So I had to really, talk with a lot of friends, and fortunately, in Chinese government, there's many friends love America. They help us and give us paperwork. I tell you, one of the happiest day in my life was, when my wife and I got the visa, got a flight ticket, and then board go through the custom and board on the flight ticket, board on the airplane to America. After the airplane taking off, from Shanghai.
Okay.
I was so emotional. I almost crying.
How long have you been separated?
No, that was 1 year. Actually, we dated I left America. I left to America in 1992. I went back to get married, right? But yeah, as I described, they have so much restrictions, so I have to overcome. get enough funding from American side, but in the meantime, also overcome all the restrictions.
Sure.
So that story tells freedom is not easy, and many Americans take it as granted. Think about it, if we go to America become a socialist country, you travel freedom, your freedom go to another country, the government can limit you. I've been through that.
It's interesting. We're being limited now, and it's travel. Is never going to be the same again. Unfortunately, we saw restrictions applied in 2001 because of the terror, the Twin Tower attack. Now we're seeing a whole new level of restrictions, and I don't know how this is, because I'm not one who does well with, how can I say, with dictatorship. So this is what the new America is starting to look like. I'll have to figure out what is next for me if the Democrats win in 2020. But I wanted to ask you, you have children, correct?
Yeah, 2 children.
So what is your legacy to humanity? What do you want your children to be? What do you want your children to remember you for?
I really want my children to remember me as a fierce fighter against radical left. Really somebody who successfully, defend America's founding principle, and somebody defeat the radical left and socialism. That will be my mission.
That's what you want your children to. What are your children's name?
My children's name, Hubert and Karina. And so Hubert is at University of Florida, and Karina is at NYU, New York University right now.
Well, you must be very proud. And they support them? Are they conservatives?
Hubert is truly conservative, and Karina is kind of on the edge. She's
in New York.
She sometimes listen to the other side, but many times also listen to all sides.
Sure, of course. The generation is now, they have to understand. They spend time with their friends. I used to be a very liberal person, liberal-minded. When you're friends, you just really want to. You want to, how can I say, be part of something. And most of my friends were, especially at that age, or more, they want social justice, they want the world to be happy. And then you grow up, you find out, somebody has to pay for all of those perks. And I realized, no, I need to be more fiscally conservative. Well, it's been a pleasure. And I want to leave the audience with you telling me one fun fact about you. What is the fun fact? What do you want a student to remember, that when you're not running for Congress, you're not running a business, you're not working for Siemens, and trying to remember your daughter's name, what is a fun fact about you that my audience would enjoy?
I want to tell you, it's really, I have been writing in English, right? I think many people like my writing. However, I have a good message, but however, sometimes I'm still struggling with or the, right? This kind of usage. Why? Because that is not in my in my native language. But I think this give one message here is, everybody, like me, are not perfect, right? But I think, when we evaluate any candidates, evaluate other people, really look at the big picture, Right. I'm not a perfect person. I do have some other shortcomings, but I think I want to really tell the audience, look at the big things. I think I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to fight against radical left.
So that's your fun. So it's the letters. I'm trying to figure out what is the fun fact, the exact fun fact, something fun about you that you want to tell the audience, something really fun. Like that, when you think of something which is unusual for you. You don't have any fun facts? Well, the fun fact is he has no fun facts.
No, maybe I have misunderstanding. So
fun fact is something fun about you that, you said you have difficulty pronouncing something. So a fun fact is, for me, it's something that, I went to sit a 45-day meditation retreat. Okay. That's something that a lot of people don't know about me. Fun fact for you. Something that many people don't know about you.
Many people don't know about me. Okay, so I guess I want to tell you, the audience, I like Chinese cooking. I cook a very delicious Chinese food.
Oh, so you're a cook.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
I started my cooking ever since I was 6 years old.
Well, that's a fun fact. I can't wait to taste your Chinese cooking. Well, audience, come on in. We're all invited. So let us know when you are cooking your next batch of wonderful Chinese cooking. See, that's a fun fact.
Okay.
Yes, because we usually see men in suits are usually the types that carry out or have somebody else cook for them. Well, that's very fun. So do you do most of the cooking at your house, or does your wife?
I tell you, before I was leading like the fight against radical left, I did 60%.
Really?
After that, I was doing I have been doing only 20% or less.
All right.
So I want to thank you for my wife. She has been very supportive to my journey.
So say thank you to her now.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Wendy. You have been very supportive when I began to lead the fight against radical left. So I guess I'm very glad and fortunate to have you. And also it happened today is your birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Wendy. My goodness. Today's what, the 27th?
Yeah.
Of July. So she's a Leo. I'm into so what's her Chinese astrological sign? Do you believe in that?
She's like a pig,
I don't think she wants anyone to know that she's a pig.
No, it's called what? In
Chinese astrology.
Yeah, Chinese.
I'm a sheep. What are you?
I'm a rabbit.
You're a rabbit.
Yeah, she in another term is boar, right? Called a boar, right?
It's a boar.
It's a boar.
Okay, I think she likes boar better than
She's
pig.
a boar, yeah.
Okay,
Boar.
so I'm a sheep. I don't want to be a sheep because there are a lot of sheeps out there now, blindly listening to
boar,
CNN and all the mainstream media.
She's a boar. I'm a rabbit.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I don't know much about Chinese astrology other than the actual signs.
Yeah.
I'll have to look up to see what it is. Well, happy birthday to you, and thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you sharing your story, and of course, I applaud you for everything that you've accomplished up until this time. And I have no doubt there is so much more to you than what we've seen this far, and the best is yet to come. So, how can the audience reach you?
Yeah, I guess you can reach to my website. It's YUKONG It's YUKONG Zhao for Congress.com.
Well, Mr. Zhao, I do appreciate you coming on the show. Of course, you've been on my other podcast, which was Charge Up Studio. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I could go on and speak to you further, but again, we would love to have you again, and so we can talk more deeply about what is exactly communism without if I had never heard of communism, I would love for you to come and share with the audience exactly like communism 101.
Sure.
Thank you
so
so much.
Having me.
I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and as always, audience, click the subscribe button and put the comments at the bottom on the page so we can know what your thoughts are. If you have any suggestions or questions for Mr. Zhao, if you can find him on his website, let me know, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with him. As always, it's a pleasure. Until the next time, have a beautiful day. Here at Frankly Speaking with Sendra D, we appreciate you so much. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D on Sendor TV. Please subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified when a new episode is uploaded. Also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook, and we definitely appreciate you being part of this community.
Trying to hold on, but you didn't even know.